This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
He is a Grammy-nominated multi-instrumentalist, a singer, a songwriter, a violin aficionado. He has released about 20 albums of his own by my count, including his most recent, Big Road. His Instagram profile reads, he's been everywhere and he's played with everyone, and I can verify that. He has pretty much written, recorded, performed with everyone who is anyone over the years, and he'll bring his big band show to the Beacon Theater June 10th. Those tickets are on sale now. Jeff Tweedy from Wilco evidently will be there, among many other friends of his. All the info, davidbromberg.net, and the great David Bromberg joins us. So, David, speaking of the Big Road, tell us about this big band. What can fans expect that may have not seen this show before at the Beacon Theater?
Oh, nobody's seen this show before.
Oh, they haven't? Oh,
no.
Okay.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, I've never done the same show twice. I don't have set lists. Although for this one I might, because I've got 3 horns, 3 backup singers, and a keyboard player, all of which don't usually travel with me. But I played with the horns before. I've played with the backup singers before. But then I've never added the keyboards, and he's such a good player. So.
And again, that show with David Bromberg's big band at the Beacon Theater. That is on June 10th. Those tickets are on sale now. All the info, davidbromberg.net. The first time I was on the radio, David, it was a classic country radio station up in Burlington, Vermont, if you can believe it. So we were playing lots of George Jones. We were playing lots of Patsy Cline, you know, the classic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your thoughts on what people call country music now.
Oh, boy. Well, country music has been through a lot of changes. For a while, there was that countrypolitan thing, which was a blight for me. I mean, I couldn't stand it.
What do you think of this guy, Billy Strings?
You know, I saw him for the first time online, and I thought he was really good. I was impressed. He was doing a tribute to Doc Watson on the little section I saw.
Yeah.
And I used to play with Doc every time he'd come to New York.
Right, yeah.
So, and Billy Strings is very clean, very fast, and he knows a lot of tunes. And beautiful singing voice. What's not to like? I'm
encouraged by the direction of this. You know what I mean? I think it's like they're going back to the roots. I mean, because at the end of the day, what I'm fascinated with is his bluegrass and his ability to play, you know, multiple instruments like yourself, but it's the classic stuff, you know. It's and you know, I had a band in here called Larkin Poe, 2 sisters, and they started out as a bluegrass band, and they made a very excellent point. It's like, you have to understand these players like yourself, like Billy Strings, and them. It's very advanced technical playing that they're doing with this bluegrass music. It's not, no one can play this. I mean, you got to be really talented, you know?
There's a kind of music they call old-timey music, which is not quite bluegrass. And it sounds as though those players are not schooled, but some of them are really schooled. Some of the stuff is really hard to do. But bluegrass players, bluegrass is named after Bill Monroe's band.
Right.
Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. And the first time they played on the Grand Ole Opry, the other performers were gobsmacked that anybody could play those tunes that fast.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, speed has always been an important part of bluegrass.
I'm one of those guys. I'm kind of a guitar nerd, if you will. I don't have that many. I have a couple acoustics. I got a couple electrics. I just find them to be like modern art. I mean, they're kind of like Mustangs or Corvettes to me. You know, they're you know, I just like looking at them. I like putting them on the wall. And I find it really intriguing that at one point in your career, you decided, you know, I'm not going to record, I'm not going to tour, I'm going to go study violin making. So why did that happen? And tell me about that experience.
Well, it happened because I was stupid. I was in, I'd been working too much. In those days, my name was out there a whole lot more. And part of the reason is because I was working so much. And I didn't realize it. So instead of shutting down for a few months, I figured, geez, I might not be a musician anymore. I don't want to be one of these guys who drags himself on stage and does an imitation of what he used to do. So I stopped playing. And
But what was it about the violin?
well, I used to play a bit of fiddle back then, and I spent a lot of time in a violin shop near where I lived in Corte Madera. I lived in Fairfax, and I was really interested not so much in learning to make a violin, but learning to identify the different schools. You can't tell what a violin is by reading the label, because a very high proportion of all the violins on the planet have Antonio Stradivarius's name, and there's not that many of them.
Right, yeah.
So the first step in learning to identify them was learning to make them and how they're made and the different schools of making and so on.
Right. You want to play a live song for us?
Okay.
What do you got there? It looks like you got a Martin, a beautiful Martin guitar there.
It's my signature model, actually.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. So you've been out to the place in Pennsylvania?
Oh, lots.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're a lucky man. I want a Martin. But tell us about this song and then just go for it.
Well, geez, my voice is really foggy. Hopefully it'll loosen up as I do the tune. This is called Big Road.
The title track?
Title track, except I do it with a band with horns and the whole works, so I'm going to do it all by myself. It's going to sound a bit different.
Unplugged.
But the original was by a player named Tommy Johnson in the 30s. And he's best known for a tune called Canned Heat.
Oh, okay.
And canned heat is what killed him. Canned heat is sternal.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the cheapest high you could get would be to strain it through a cheesecloth and drink what came out.
Oh,
and
man.
It would get you high and make you blind and then kill you.
Wow.
And that's what happened to Tommy Johnson, but he was pretty wonderful.
And then there was a band named after Canned Heat, I guess.
Right.
Too. Going up the country.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear it.
Well, now I ain't coming down that big road by the big road. Lord, can't you hear me talking to you? I say I ain't going down that big road by myself. And if I can't carry you, I'm bound to carry somebody else. I know the sun gonna shine in my back doors, in my back. Lord, can't you hear me talking to you? The sun is about to shine in my back door some sweet day. Yeah, the wind gonna come, children, blow these blues away. Well, now people try to tell you that the weary blues, the weary, Lord, can't you hear me talking to you? Some people might try to tell you the weary blues ain't so bad. Hey, that must not have been the same kind of weary blues that I had. This stuff will kill you. Well, the blues ain't nothing but a aching heart, an aching, Lord, can't you hear me talking to you? I say the blues ain't nothing but an aching heart disease. It's just a slow consumption, people, is killing me by degrees. Well, the blues ain't nothing but a low down weary, a low down Lord, can't you hear me talking to you? The blues ain't nothing but a low down aching chill. And if you never did have them, I truly hope you never will.
Sounding great. David Bromberg playing live for us here on Q104.3's Out of the Box. The first time I heard the name David Bromberg, I mentioned this to you before the interview, was from my father, Ren Gravatt, who was doing PR for you
Right.
quite a long time ago.
Yes, and
early 70s. Any remembrances of my dad you can think of?
I never saw him very much. I read what he did, and I would see him at a party or something, but it wasn't a thing that happened.
It was all phone calls, and we didn't have email then, so
No.
it was phone calls, and I don't think we had faxes then either.
Yeah.
Overnight packages or whatever. But you were born in Philly. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
But you were a New Yorker, meaning Tarrytown, during your formative years. Then you moved here to the city to go to Columbia. At that time, Greenwich Village was really the place to be, sort of like the genesis of what kind of music the world was going to hear for quite some time. And just going through the partial list of the recordings and collaborations with other artists over the years, there are some really impressive and historical names. If you don't mind, I want to do a quick lightning round with you.
Uh-oh.
I want to throw you a name. First thing that comes to your mind, you can tell me what happens or what happened or whatever you remember. Okay. And if you don't want to, it's fine. The first name I'll give you is Al Cooper.
Al Cooper is a friend. Al Cooper is really a wonderful musician and a very good friend. And
worked on a couple records with him, right?
Yeah, I did. I worked on one of his own and also on one with Dylan. Al, I had to cancel some gigs for health reasons. Al called.
Really?
Yeah, that says something to me.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, it was very sweet of him.
Richie Havens.
Oh, Richie's wonderful. When I was first in the Village, I used to work these places called basket houses, and every now and then Richie would come in. And I was knocked out. And I had a desire to get a film camera because there was no video.
Right, yeah.
And film Richie and one other guy named Paul Siebel. But I got to know Richie better as time went by. And when his usual accompanist wasn't there, I would play guitar for him, and that was always wonderful. Yeah,
Richie, the best. And you mentioned it before. Your thoughts on Bob Dylan then and perhaps now even?
Well, then covers a wide swath.
Yeah. At least a couple albums, right? You were working with them on, I think.
More than a couple.
Self-Portrait, and then there was another one, and
New Morning, and then one that was just called Bob Dylan, and then I produced some tracks for him years later.
Wow. What's it like to work with him?
It's really very satisfying. I should tell you, the minute you said Bob Dylan, the first thing I was going to tell you is that I've hardly ever seen that guy that everybody writes about.
Yeah.
I see a solid citizen and someone with his feet on the ground and who I can talk to. We talked a lot during those sessions in Chicago.
A guy that just celebrated his 90th birthday, you know him, Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Tell me about working with Willie or knowing him or performing with him.
I can't claim to know him really well. I was on an album or two of his, and I've been on his bus talking to him and things over time. He's a very sweet guy and one of the most talented songwriters that's ever lived.
Ringo Starr.
Well, again, I can't claim to know a great deal about Ringo, but I worked with him on a couple of his albums, and they were great. It was fun doing it. I don't know what else to say.
I know there was a co-write with you and George Harrison, I think, on a song. Did you ever get to meet George? Or
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
George, I knew a little better. George and I were both invited to a Thanksgiving Day dinner at the home of Al Aronowitz, who he's the one who contacted your dad.
About you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he was. And anyhow, so both George and I were invited to dinner at his home, and neither of us brought a guitar. We were there for dinner, but we sat for a while he cooked, and we're guitar junkies. The only guitar there was a kind of entry-level gut string guitar. So we picked it up and passed it back and forth.
Ah, okay.
Just because we had to have it in our hands.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you see it there lying there. You got to pick it up, right, if you're a guitar player.
Yeah, and we ended up with a song. We hadn't tried to write a song, but it wrote itself.
Ah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that story. David Bromberg is with us. Again, he's going to be with his big band at the Beacon Theater on June 10th. Those tickets are on sale now. You can get all the info at davidbromberg.net. David, really great to see you after all these years. And continued success and best of luck. And we'll see you at the Beacon on June 10th.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.